everybody, welcome back to another edition of Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I, Crafting Journey, your host Rebecca, recap live trials. Still waiting for the trial to start of Scott Peterson. I learned it's S-C-O-T, not S-C-O-T-T. Scott Peterson, he is the school resource officer that was involved the day of the Parkland shooting down in South Florida. Still waiting for them to finalize picking the jury. Thought was, I was hoping it would start today, but it hasn't. So I have a true crime story for you. But first, how was your weekend? I had a great weekend. I worked on some cross stitch. I want to show that to you. I actually got out a pattern that I started last year. Yes. And worked on it for a little while. So it's a Christmas tree. It is supposed to look like this. It was supposed to be done all in one color. And I have decided to do it in multicolored. So this weekend I worked on this. I did this whole side over here. Yep. You got pink doves in there. I'm using some variegated floss in some of the ornaments. Looks super cool. Okay, so that's what I was working on this weekend, and I organized my cross stitch. If you just walked in and you looked at it, you go, "Oh, that's not organized." For me, it's organized. I know where everything is. I know what floss I have, and I know what floss I need to purchase. Yeah, next time I go to Joann's, next time there's a sale for a couple of projects that I want to start in the future. Jean, if you're listening, my sister, don't worry. I will finish one someday, I promise. Yeah, cross stitch is a little different. For some reason, we start a lot, we don't finish a lot. Yeah, but we have fun with the process. It's a process. So I'm still diamond painting the secret garden. I did not work on that this weekend. The other thing I worked on was the June gnome. I'm about halfway done with that. Probably on Wednesday, during Wednesday's show, I will show you where I'm at with that. Then Wednesday night in my Craft With Me Wednesday Live, I'm going to be watercolor painting. Yay! I'm going to do some flowers. That are in a garden, or that were in a garden in one of my subscribers' homes. So let's pour some drills out. Let's start talking about the case of Jennifer Joyce Kessie. She was born May 20th, 1981. And in January of 2006, Jennifer Keese vanishes. Just vanishes. She is last seen the afternoon of Monday, January 23rd, after she leaves work. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She's from Florida. Yep, we're going back to Florida. Florida never fails me for a true crime story. Never fails. In any case, she graduated from Vivian Gaither High School in Tampa, following which she goes over to Orlando. She's studying at the University of Central Florida, graduates with a degree in finance. She gets a job at Central Florida Investments timeshare company in Ocoee, Florida, as a finance manager. And she is having a great life. She just purchased a condo in a complex called Mosaic. She chose this condo, according to her best friend, Lauren McCarthy, because she was very safety conscious. She said she would carry mace wherever she went. She felt like this was a safe place to live. It was a gated community. We all know how that turns out with gated communities. It was a gated community. They had a security guard who was supposed to log in and out every visitor, and she felt safe there. So this is where she purchased a condo. She had a boyfriend that they had just celebrated their 1 year anniversary. Unfortunately, he lived in Fort Lauderdale, which is about 3 hours away from where she was living. So long distance relationship. They had just spent the weekend together. They had gone to, it was a long weekend. They went to St. Croix over in the Virgin Islands. They were there with some friends. She had a fabulous time. On her way to work Monday morning, January 23rd, she returned from that vacation on Sunday, the 22nd. On the morning of the 23rd, she's on her way to work. She's telling her mom what a great time she had. She's sharing all the details of her St. Croix vacation with mom, and she's just in a great mood. So she goes to work, she leaves work, and this is the last time she is ever seen, not heard from, but this is the last time anyone ever saw her. She leaves work about 6 p.m. that night. I should be diamond painting, right? So on her way home about 6:15 p.m., she talks to dad. So she gets him on the phone, or they're on the phone with each other. So she talks to dad, and then later that evening at home, about 10 p.m., like 9:57 to be exact, she talks to her boyfriend. His name is Rob Allen. Now, her usual routine on the days that she would go to work is that on her way to work, she would text or call Rob. So Tuesday, January 26th, well, let me just back up. On Monday night, when she talked to Rob, they had a little argument. It was not a great conversation that they had. She was getting frustrated because of the long distance thing. Now, I don't know the particulars of the conversation. I just know that it wasn't a great conversation. It didn't leave off well. In any case, on Tuesday, she doesn't call him. She does not text him on her way to work. So he thought, well, this is strange because, she always texts me. So he tries to call her and she's not responding. Her calls are going to voicemail. She's not answering her texts. So he's thinking, wow, what's going on? Meanwhile, she doesn't show up for work. Now, coworkers describe her as being a very, very reliable worker. If she was going to call, if she was going to be late, she would call. If she was not going to be there, she would call. They could rely on this woman. And so they were very, very worried when she did not show up. So about 11 o'clock that morning, the managers there, call Jennifer's parents and they say, Jennifer did not show up for work this morning. So Jennifer's parents, they're trying to call her. They can't get a hold of her. So they're a little unnerved. So they live about 2 hours away, probably over in Tampa. I don't know positively where they live, but given that she went to high school in Orlando and that the distance was 2 hours, I'm surmising it's Tampa, because Tampa to Orlando is about 2 hours. So anyway, so they drive over to Orlando. Meanwhile, they're calling around friends, family, trying to see, have you seen her? They call the condo management company and say, can you go over and look in her apartment? So they go over there and they have keys. They go in and they said nothing's amiss. Everything looks fine. So they get to the apartment that afternoon, probably about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And they go in. The building manager lets them in. They go in, and really nothing is amiss. She has taken her purse, her car keys, and her cell phone. They're not there. Her car is not there either. She had a 2004 Chevy Malibu. It's gone. She's not there. Nothing is amiss. There's no signs of forced entry into the condo. Mom goes into the bathroom and sees signs of her daughter having gotten ready for work that morning. She's like, yep, my daughter, this is her usual. She left a wet towel out on the counter. Things were, clothes were laid out. You could tell she had just had a shower that morning. It looked like she was following her usual morning routine that she would do before going to work. However, we know she doesn't get to work. So they call the police. So, unfortunately, when the Orlando police arrive, they're like, well, she's 24 years old. She probably just left on her own accord. So they don't consider this a missing persons. I will say that following this case, Florida legislature enacted some laws to make missing persons cases uh, investigated a little bit more strenuously, thank God. So by about 4 o'clock that afternoon, the parents who are taking this very seriously have printed flyers. People are, this whole community. Orlando, it sounds like a big, that's just where Disney World is. It's a huge place. It should be safe. It's, but I will tell you the people in Orlando are some of the nicest people you will ever meet. My brother lives over there. Just a community of nice, nice, nice people. And you could say that about anywhere, I guess, but not really. Because I lived in South Florida, like Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and you can't say that about South Florida. They're not that nice in South Florida. People don't want to be bothered with strangers in South Florida. But Orlando's different. Everybody is just friendlier. Orlando, Tampa, that whole area. It's just a whole different vibe than South Florida. So this community rallies and they are looking for her. They're on horseback. They're everywhere trying to find this woman, passing out flyers. Finally, the police like, yeah, maybe we'll send a detective over there. By the time he gets there and they're semi taking this seriously, he says, they're like, are you going to have a crime scene people come out and do the apartment? And he's like, no, you guys have been here. You've got 12 people in there and we can't, what are we going to investigate now? You've contaminated the crime scene. So they didn't. They also didn't interview any of the neighbors. They did conduct an investigation. So they sent out, the police. They've got helicopters looking everywhere. They're putting up posters, billboards. I mean, this was just a huge search. Helicopters, they're looking everywhere. They cannot find this woman. 2 days later, on January 28th, which is Thursday, this woman at a condo called Huntington on the Green, she's watching the news. And this is about 1.1 miles away from the Mosaic condo where Jennifer lives. She's seeing that Jennifer's missing on the news, and she sees this car, the 2004 Chevy Malibu, and she's like, there's been a car here abandoned for 2 days that matches that description. So she calls the police. They go over, and sure enough, yep, that's Jennifer's car. So they decide they're going to pull the surveillance footage. I might add, though, the Mosaic, who Jennifer thought this was such a secure facility, had no surveillance footage. None. Today's a different age. We've got cameras everywhere. Every house has a Ring camera on it. Like, you can't go anywhere or do anything that isn't recorded. Google Earth will pick you up in a heartbeat as soon as you step out your door. At the point that where she goes missing, Google Earth is in beta. It's not on every day. They don't necessarily catch everything. Now they do, but in any case, 2006, no, that didn't happen. But the Huntington on the Green had surveillance. So it was out by the pool. So they pull this footage that was out by the pool, and there was a couple of cameras they get footage from. One of the cameras shows Jennifer's car pulling into this parking lot at Huntington on the Green at about noon on Tuesday, the 26th. The car pulls in to a parking space, backs out of the parking space to try to straighten up the car, which I find strange, and like no sense of urgency, right? So it pulls back into the parking space. The driver is in that vehicle for the next 32 seconds. The driver gets out of the vehicle, walks away from the vehicle, never looks back. Now, another camera that's out by the pool picks up this person walking past these gates that are around the pool. Unfortunately, this surveillance camera only takes pictures like every 2 seconds. And as it so happened, every time this camera took a picture of this person, there would be one of these, like it was like a black wrought iron gate. So there'd be one of these gate poles where they could not see this person's face. So I will put a picture here so you can see what this person looked like. The person's, they had this analyzed and they said that it looked like the person was between 5'3" and 5'5", that he had on like work clothing. They thought maybe like he might be a painter or something. They did think it was a male who had pretty large feet for that size height. And that's about all they could tell. They really could not tell much else. So they put this footage out there and they asked for leads. There's a $15,000, at the time there was a $15,000 reward. I believe there still is a $15,000 reward that will lead, if you have a tip that will lead to the discovery of Jennifer Keese's whereabouts, that you might be able to obtain them. And her employer at one point in 2007 put out a $1 million reward, but gave it an expiration date of July of that year, and she had to be returned alive. They never got any leads, or obviously they never found her. They have that footage. They can't figure out who it is. They ask for tips. They don't figure out who this is. Now you're thinking, hey, what about the boyfriend? She had a fight with him that night, the night before. I know. He was in Fort Lauderdale. His alibi held tight. He was ruled out as a suspect. Thank God, because it's kind of cute. Anyway, so inside her vehicle, they had this analyzed by the crime scene technicians. They found her cell phone. They found her cell phone chargers. There was a pair of sandals. Um, there was nothing in the trunk. They thought maybe she's in the trunk. No, she was not in the trunk. They had a police dog. They brought out a police dog who got a scent from the car and followed that scent back to Jennifer's condo, the condo complex. Now, I would like to tell you, though, at this point in time, her condo was under renovation. They were doing a very large renovation, and there were a lot of workers out there, many of whom did not speak English. So the police had a hard time interviewing these people, the ones that they could find. A lot of them, when this happened, whoosh, they were out of there because of their migrant status. They're like, nope, we'll find a job somewhere else where you're not looking for. So this was no help. And some of those people were staying in apartments. It's believed that on the morning that she disappeared, there were at least 10 of these workers staying in an empty apartment across from her, and that she may have encountered them when she left for work that morning. Just a theory. So the police, they're investigating, they're not finding anything. In 2008, another, the Orlando police officer, he picks this file up and he's like, I'm going to start fresh. We're going to start this investigation over. So they interview a woman who was a housekeeper at this condo where Jennifer lived. She remembers Jennifer Kessie, remembers a lot of people from the condo. She had never been interviewed before, and she was shown the photograph that I put up earlier of this guy passing by the gates. And she says, gosh, that looks like a man named Chino, who was a maintenance man at the condo at the time, and he lived in the condo. She goes, that looks a lot like him. So they're like, okay, let's go find this guy Chino. So where do you think they find Chino? Chino's in jail. He's in prison. He was convicted of statutory rape of a minor. So he's in prison. So they go to visit Chino. And he's like, nope, didn't have anything to do with her disappearance. Denied the whole thing. Even volunteered to take a polygraph. And he passed the polygraph. Now, that polygraphs are not really in and of themselves exculpatory, but that, coupled with the fact that he was 5'9", much taller than the person in that picture, they kind of ruled him out. Although they would revisit him many, many, many years later. He was interviewed by CBS News, and he even agreed to meet with the family. He agreed to meet with the family's private investigator. He says, I'll do whatever I can to help these parents. I didn't have anything to do with this. So I believe that's probably true. In 2016, the Kessies had to have her declared dead, for legality purposes. So father actually had to go to court and have her legally declared dead. How hard could that have been? Oh my God. So by this time, the family's like, they're asking the Orlando police, can you just please just turn over the files to us? Declare this a cold case and give us the files. And they're like, no. They wouldn't declare it a cold case, because if they had declared it a cold case, there were resources available to the Kessies that they could have taken advantage of, but they did not do that. So they sued the Orlando Police Department. And at this point in time, the Orlando had a new police chief, and he says, listen, give us 6 months to investigate. If there's still no leads, we'll give you the files. So this happens. 6 months go by, no leads. They turn over to that family 16,000 documents, 16,000. And 67 hours of video footage, from interviews and various things. So the Keese family hires a private investigator, and he says that he has probably gone through that file at least 3 times during his investigation. And it's interesting because in 2010, the FBI took over this investigation. And like I said earlier, I think in December of 2022, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement took over the investigation. So they're trying to figure out what happened to this woman. They absolutely have no clues. Absolutely no clues. 17 years later. Yeah. So if you know anything about this case, have any leads, have seen someone that meets her description, she's 5'8", blonde hair. At the time, she was anywhere from 125 to 135 pounds, green eyes, beautiful woman. Go over to the Facebook page. There's a Jennifer Kessie Facebook page that you can go over to and talk to people about what you might know about this case. Okay, that's the show for the day, guys. I hope you enjoyed the content. Please do not hesitate to hit that like button. Yep, and I will see you tomorrow in Crafting and Crime Daily. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.